what I thought
Gosh,
about
it seems so long.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had an intern at Oregon State, so we did live shots with her.
The next week, yeah.
Yeah.
Mostly good.
We did a lot of our interns in
Sometimes
Oregon City.
a little scary for sure, but like mostly fine.
No, we're not starting yet. Come and give me 5 minutes. 5 minutes. So we're gonna try to start right on that time at 3 o'clock. Okay.
We just must have like a good TV news program.
Yeah, no, honestly, the banner has been keeping me afloat. Like they are most like my biggest client. Yeah, no, I even said I'm very yeah, so I guess it's
They'll speak. I worked in bands, so it was like
Morgan's the best. Okay, so Morgan's really good.
division of responsibility.
And then we'll say like random like Missouri or like random.
Police and civil justice.
Oh, I like how that sounds,
but
Yeah, this is my
yeah,
ish,
there's
yeah.
a ton of great neighborhoods. So do you like have an
I
idea
did
of what
mostly again in
That was
Yeah, they're rough. I mean, the police chief that was there when I was there.
Yeah, right.
It's not huge, but like it's
but like also normal people up there.
Me too. Right.
So yeah, I like Kansas. That's one of my
races,
favorites.
like all the things. So yeah.
Which like street you're on in Berlin, I guess.
Yeah. It's probably such an interesting place. I was in Old North End.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's quite a while.
North East.
Oh yeah, we're yeah. So in
When you say the separate city, it's the city right next door, but I lived on North and East Street.
Oh, so you I know when these people trying to like it's strange because I know the water below the city.
Yeah, I guess.
And Burlington is fun because it has the water on the side.
It's really interesting.
Like everything's
Yeah.
a relationship.
Yeah.
It'll be Texas. So it'll be like the Saturday that we're visiting. We're just gonna like go on a little hike.
Which is
And
like
Mick wants me to ask for like to take pictures of my
south.
and he's like, oh, will you take pictures?
Anyway,
I just almost
anyway, I had a friend live
a
like
couple weeks ago.
like 2 blocks.
Big job.
And I started crying. I was like,
I lived the exact opposite.
And now it's like,
yeah, no,
and like,
it's like a hit. I mean, it's never
Yeah.
you know, that's like one
Like a
of the
restaurant or a store.
restaurant. And
Okay.
then like there's a cemetery.
Yes, I know exactly the cemetery you're talking
Yeah.
about. And I know, I think, the place you're talking about, I think they since closed down.
That's horrible.
Yeah. I agree. A lot of things have closed down.
Want me to take some out?
Since even I was there. Yeah. It's really fun.
Burlington's crazy, crazy town.
It's an interesting place, for sure. I've seen it. I didn't know anything about Vermont before I moved there, and now I moved to New York City. So I moved to New York City for 9 months. Well, I just went to EDC more recently. Since I was at BPD before EDC.
I swear I had it.
I have an extra.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I come prepared.
Thank you. Well,
There's no shame.
I like it.
There's no shame. I don't know if it works. I did luck, yeah.
I'm sure that I
want it back because I just got it
don't
today.
even worry about it because it was probably on the floor of like a car or something.
You're good.
Which I hope doesn't get towed like a police only spot.
No way they tow it that fast.
Well,
Is that a thing?
I would not be so sure about that.
You're okay with this, homie? Just
Oh yeah.
I just got it today.
Where'd you get that?
Mandela Day. On Utah Place. Like a community event. So it was really cool. I just went for like an hour and a half. Okay. Learned.
Sure.
There's an ice cream truck at our station right now.
Just as a thing.
Always have it. I know. They always have the ice cream truck right up the.
We are quote unquote competitors, but.
Couldn't tell ya.
I mean, it's on
Oh, yeah, half the time,
Oh my gosh.
half the time I'm like,
I mean, yeah, it's just an extent,
When
like,
I
I don't wanna
came
break a
here,
story,
he
but
made
it's
an
like,
article about,
I mean, I feel like I'm so people.
and he started writing, she's been here for this long, just everything's wrong. Just everything was wrong. I was like, nope, been there for 5 years. And he put like
So,
7.
I got here.
Oh,
I'm
here,
brother.
brother.
I was still being
They had a, I don't
something
remember
popped off.
up in
Shoot,
Minnesota
how?
where like one of the
So,
inmates
all
was
right,
like,
but keep going. So I was like, yeah,
heard this
Fees, just generally.
Well, you should be
talking
scared. You're in
about
the top
like
30 market.
this
Oh,
was on Shea Wednesday.
Yeah.
Shea Wednesday, and then they had a
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, no.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I see.
I thought he was
I think
weird
one of the
older
producers
man.
too, there are some interesting.
And then he kills me when he posted this on the station branded account. I'm like, the station's got
I can cut it in. I also have copies of the IED press release in case anybody would like it. All right, sir, we're gonna get started.
Good afternoon. Thanks for being here. Joining me today is Deputy Commissioner Brian Nadeau and Chief Olufemi Akani. We're here to release the body-worn camera footage from the police officer-involved shooting from June 25th in the 2700 block of Mosier Street. I recognize that any use of force by law enforcement can generate significant public concern and scrutiny, especially those involving behavioral health. We remain open to ongoing dialogue with our community and with our partners. We have a full, transparent, and detailed investigation will be carried out with the Attorney General's office in coordination with our department. At this time, I'll turn it over to Deputy Commissioner Nadeau to go over the body-worn camera.
Thank you, Commissioner. As the Commissioner stated, we'll be releasing the body-worn camera videos, which shows the police officer-involved shooting, which took place on June 25th, 2025 at approximately 2:03 p.m. Following our body-worn camera release policy, the videos have been given to the U.S. Attorney's Office, the Attorney General's Office, and the Baltimore Office of Equity and Civil Rights. Additionally, we have shown the videos to the family. To put some context into what you're about to see, on Wednesday, June 25th, 2025, Officer Stephen Colbert, Rashid Horsey, Police Officer Trainee Destiny Gaskins were dispatched to 2711 West Mosier Street in Baltimore. Dispatch had received 2 calls for service at that address. One call was from a social worker who had done a welfare check on the occupant of the house and had received no response. A second call came from a family member who stated that the occupant of that house had attempted to stab him with a knife. In the videos, you will see the officers speaking with the family member, then attempting to get the occupant, Miss P. Brooks, to open the rear door. The officers used a key provided by the family member to unlock the door. Then Miss Brooks pushes the door closed. Officers continue to speak with the family member, who then calls another family member on the phone to discuss Miss Brooks. One of the officers speaks with that family member on the phone. The medics are also on scene and attempt to speak to Miss Brooks. At one point, an officer opens the rear door again, and Miss Brooks reaches through the door and displays a knife and makes a stabbing motion. Medics attempt to speak with Miss Brooks and ask her some basic questions. Unfortunately, she does not respond to their questions. The officers and medics then walk to the front door, and officers enter the residence. They see Miss Brooks with a knife. An officer attempts to tase her. She then attempts to stab the officer with the knife, and a second officer discharges his weapon 3 times, striking Miss Brooks, and simultaneously the trainee discharged her taser. The body-worn camera's length is over 30 minutes in length. We have pared them down for this viewing, but as always, we will release the full videos to you. As we watch the video, I should say at the beginning, there is construction outside on the street, which adds a lot of noise. We have limited that noise in order for you to hear the videos, and we'll show the video and take any questions.
Cameron, you want the lights off?
You guys saw about Mr. Lada. I sent the homeboy down here like 3 days ago. He said he came here to try to see she needed a telephone or she needed some groceries. She told him by the window, get the F away from them or from him. Who are you to her? And you don't have a key to the house? This is the key.
You said the key to the back door?
Oh.
Okay. Are you okay? You laying on the ground. You want me to go get you?
I'm still all right. Yeah. I don't know. I saw the caseworker with his card in the door. Supposed to send the welfare check. That's why we here.
They sent it back and said the call just came in and the office.
What's up?
Call just came in and the office.
Huh?
She might pull up on mom kids and staff.
For what?
She might just start a staff.
I can't say.
Baltimore City Police.
This is one of those one bumps getting this to the top of the line.
Baltimore City Police. So what's wrong with mom? What's wrong with her? Lift your shirt up for me. Why do you keep grabbing her there? Give me that key. So what's wrong with mom?
Mental health crisis?
No, I wanted to send it back. Now that I left,
It's on my back, so.
once I sent it and they sent it back to me.
So what happened now?
She has that word. They sent her back home. Correct. When we tried to tell her to get out, she went wrong and just tried to choose. So
she just closed the door and locked the door. So she's there, but that's why we're trying to figure out like what's going on with her, like what's going on with her. Besides she had a breakdown. Right. So this is what we do condition checks if we haven't heard from them and they're not responding. She's obviously responding. So that's why he was telling you you're gonna have to get something else, because like if we go in and she like, get out of my house, I'm fine, I don't want to talk to y'all, we gone. That's why he was explaining to her like, you guys gotta do something a little bit more, because she ain't dead, she just definitely just closed the door and locked the door back.
You said you live here?
I used to live here. They're not gonna take her if she don't want to go. The only way that she's gonna go without it if you file for the emergency petition. But you keep going to the emergency petition for not getting her help. Because like I said, you gotta look for something long term. So like I said, you guys got, if it's just you that's taking care of mine, you guys gotta get together and you guys gotta look for long-term care. If you think that she's going so far off, you guys gotta look for long-term care to get her out of here. If we physically, even if we go in, she say, F me, get out of my house. We can say, are you trying to hurt yourself? No. Leave. That's all we can do. So it's like, you guys, I don't know if you gotta talk with your sister, y'all gotta figure out something else, but she's definitely up and moving. She just closed the door and locked it back. Yeah, because of that crap going on. We good. She don't want to talk to nobody.
We still have to check it. Because they're going, we don't.
No, we couldn't hear it because that was going on. We opened the door, she closed the door. Let's good to me. Yeah. So you guys you and your sister and your uncle, y'all gotta get together and talk about some long-term care.
He like pushed the door open. It seemed like it's something like barricading the door, but she moved it back and locked it.
You call your sister?
Yes, sir. I'm calling the sister. Speak with me. Would you like to speak with me?
Yep. Who's this?
This is Yes, sir.
How you doing? Hello? How you doing, Mr. This Officer Cobra from Baltimore City Police. How you doing today? Alright, so what's your name again? We was here to try to check on Mom. And it looks like Mom don't want to talk to nobody. She didn't answer the door. When we opened the door, she pretty much closed the door back on us. So Miss was telling us that she has previous like mental issues that she was hospitalized for. The next one.
I was at her house the other day, and she cursed me out. I didn't know what the deal was. I asked her. She didn't say anything.
Yeah, we getting the same thing. So I was trying to see if you can get in contact with somebody and let them know. Like I said, Mom's okay. She's okay. Well, as far as moving around and being able to open and close the door, she just don't want to be bothered by nobody, it looks like. But
I'm coming up that way about 5 or 6 minutes.
well, I don't know if you're gonna get an answer either. But we gotta look for long-term care, Mr. We gotta look for long-term care for his mom. Cause like she's been hospitalized before, but you guys gotta look at something else. Cause if she just don't want to open the door, we can't force her to go open the door and go to the hospital if she don't want to. And,
I'll be up there about 15.
okay.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
I mean, does Ricky keep working on the door? So that we can just talk to her and make sure she's able to answer questions.
Work on the back. It's gonna work on the back door, but that front door got a padlock on it, so it's not going to do the front. She have a defense right there.
Miss Brooks? That's the fire
Yes.
department, man.
Miss Brooks, it's the fire department, babe. Okay. Huh?
I can't hear you.
Now you see why I was all these mosquitoes back there? Miss Brooks! Miss Brooks! See you come to the door? Huh?
We just want to make sure you're okay.
Yeah, we just want to make sure you're okay. Huh? I can't hear you this all day. Miss Brooks?
Was she talking so she
She's not answering questions. For our yes, and tell us. Miss Brooks. Miss Brooks. Do you know what year it is? Is the power on inside? Do you know what year it is? It's the power on. Yes, ma'am.
Hey, y'all in the car, do you see hot today? Yeah, what's going on here?
No, you had. All right, Miss Brooks, listen to me. I'm trying to be nice here.
Hold on.
So, Miss Brooks, if you don't answer my questions, I'm gonna have to take you out of here.
I was just in here, she had power, that was like 6.
What year is it? How many quarters make a dollar?
Is it anybody, you hear, you hear all this stuff?
Huh? If you answer my questions, I'll leave you alone. Ma'am, if you answer my questions, I'll leave you alone. I promise we'll leave you alone. Miss Brooks.
Oh, you just showed up.
I don't know what's on the other side of that thing.
Go ahead, Cobra.
What?
Come on, y'all, big, strong man.
What you trying to do? I mean, I can get it open, but what's gonna happen afterwards, I think. I don't know. I'm not doing it. Yeah, it's a whole.
That's something, I just don't know what.
Miss Brooks.
We're just trying, she has a nice time.
We're trying to talk to you. Go ahead. Put yours down. Put yours down.
Brooks, we just want to speak.
You gotta leave.
You gotta put that down.
Here, she going.
She going?
Yeah, she going now. We already see that now. Okay, all right, so let's just take the front then.
Sir, can you step back? Sorry, step all the way back. Can we take the front?
I don't know.
Say something.
I'm not doing it. Yeah, it's all.
Miss Brooks. That's something, I just don't know what. Miss Brooks. We're just trying, she has a nice time. We're trying to talk to you.
Go ahead, Lucy, go ahead.
Come on, there with the big people.
It's a deep freezer right there. Yeah,
Miss Brooks. That's something, I just don't know what. Miss Brooks. We're just trying, she has a nice time. We're trying to talk.
Go ahead, Lucy, go ahead.
Yeah, I know, I got it.
Put yours down. Put yours down.
Miss Brooks, we just want to speak to you. You gotta put that down. Yep, and then I'm gonna hold her with the taser. Western 3. Hold the 2711 Moser. All right, over. I'm going hot with the taser. Drop it! Drop it, ma'am! Stop back! Get on the ground! Drop that! Drop
ma'am. Come on, drop the knife. Taser. Taser. Get down. Get down. Get down. I'm telling Hold the 27 over. I'm going hot with the taser. Drop it! Drop it! Him! Drop it! Get on the ground! Drop it! Drop him! Drop the knife! Hospital! Come on! Drop the knife! No! Stop! Come on! Stop the knife! Drop the knife! Come on! Drop the knife! Come on! Get down! Get down! Let's walk! Get down! I'm good. I'm covering her. I'm covering her, ma'am. Don't! Please don't! Under. Drop! Bring him out. I got her covered from here. Okay, I got two in my left front. Yep. Yep. Swing around this way, Yep. I got it covered. Illegal or illegal? Come here. Just get him up. Come on, get out. I'm good. Come on, get up. The knife is on the so just wipe it over. Get up, get up. Wash it good. I know. Wash it good. You good?
Turn the lights. As you can see, this is a tragic and unfortunate incident. Our thoughts continue to be with the family of Ms. Brooks and our community. The officer involved remains on routine administrative leave and has been referred to our Office of Safety and Wellness. As Deputy Commissioner Nadeau said, prior to the officer's arrival, a social worker went to Ms. Brooks' house and after receiving no answer, called 911 for a wellness check. Following that call, we received another 911 call from a family member stating that Ms. Brooks was violent, has a weapon, armed with a knife, and attempted to stab the family member. That's when both fire and police personnel were called to the scene attempting to speak to Ms. Brooks. For her safety, first responders attempted to get her to voluntarily go to the hospital for treatment. Additionally, there was a concern about the extreme heat. It was 97 degrees and apparently the air conditioning was not working. And as you saw, as you saw the officer when they got close to the door, there was an odor coming from the house. The use of deadly force is never taken lightly and is only employed when no other alternative is available. Monty has activated the neighborhood stabilization and has been out in the community alongside our partners with Behavioral Health Systems, Baltimore, and Baltimore Crisis Response Incorporated. As stated previously, we remain dedicated to a full and transparent and thorough investigation alongside the Attorney General's office. At this time, I'll take any questions.
So we're gonna start questions right here with the reporters in the front, and then we'll move our way to the TV reporters. So we're gonna start here with the son.
Yeah, why was the social worker at the house to begin with? Was there a 911 call to
I believe
the house?
they were there to do a wellness check.
Was that in response to a 911 call, or just?
I don't know what that was in response to. You saw, it was mentioned by the family member as they were walking. The social worker put a card in the door.
Yeah, was a crisis response team called to the scene, and if not, why?
There was a crisis, one of those officers on the scene was crisis response trained.
But the BPD has a crisis response team. that
Correct.
goes out
They
with
were
a
not
mission,
called.
Right? Why were they not called?
It's still under investigation.
Ariana?
So I know y'all said it was like a 30-minute long video. How long did the officers wait, or like how long was that before they got there when they breached the door? Like what was that?
Approximately 30 minutes.
How much, when they were like undoing the door, how much did they consider her past experience the cause to have gone to the house? Because previously y'all said it was about 20.
We haven't been able to talk to those officers, so we don't know what they took into consideration before they proceeded.
We're gonna go to Channel 2 with Blair.
Commissioner, when we first were on the scene 2 weeks ago, you said that there had been more than 20 calls to the same residence in the past year. That's got to be frustrating for you and your department. You know, you want to help people, but it feels like maybe that wasn't happening. So where do you think the disconnect is between policing our communities and mental health issues?
I think we've come a long way, but this video clearly and other videos, not just here but throughout the country, has shown that we've got a long way to go dealing with behavioral crisis. All police officers are police officers. We give them the training that we can give them to deal with this, but the behavioral health is a medical issue that we have to address, and people that aren't police officers have to help us address this with getting treatment for these individuals.
I'm going to Stefan at CBS.
Thank you. Commissioner, when you think about the fact that the officers eventually did go in, can you just clarify for us, you know, this woman's in her home, this loved one that clearly is one of the ones that made this call, he had a key. You guys tried to go in, Ms. Brooks was trying to push you guys out. What was the logic in actually entering the home?
Well, I think that we still have to get information from the officers, so a lot of that is still under investigation, but it was clear at one point, you heard it on the video, that she had to go to the hospital to get evaluation.
Gotcha.
It was, like I said, 97 degrees, and you see the house is all shut
Gotcha.
up.
Well, you have folks that will see this and say, okay, she needed a wellness check, you know, that she might have been not well, or whatever the case may be, and I saw your EMS official try to ask her what year it was and all of those things. At what point would it have been a more better option to kind of let her cool or not cause that type of interaction where she has this knife after your officer has fallen, but you guys have already entered the home before this happens?
That's still all under investigation with the Attorney General. It's an active investigation,
Sure.
so we can't say too much on that part.
Vincent first, then we'll go to Tommy.
Can you explain when the crisis response team is activated? Like Blair said, we've been told 20 times that calls have been made to this residence, and some of them in reference to behavioral health. So when is it the time to call the crisis team and say, hey, we need to have different bodies here to help out?
It all depends on the officer, the one officer that was there trained. You saw in the very beginning, they were trying to do everything they could to try to get an emergency petition for Ms. Brooks. And then when she couldn't answer the questions that are part of the law through the fire and medical field, it was time that the officers made the decision to go in.
Plus, the CR team would not have been dispatched to this particular call because it came in as she was trying to stab her son, and so they would not respond to that. The first responding officers would be patrol, which is what happened along with the fire department.
Okay, so it's because how the call came in.
That is correct. And all officers have a 3-day training on behavioral health in the academy. Additionally, there's an additional training, which is our CIT program, which is the 5 days additional, which is also being taught at this time.
Vincent?
Commissioner, I know the answer to this because I've been on these types of calls, but can you explain how come the taser sometimes is not an effective use of force?
It depends. Usually we don't know why it didn't affect it. I think, and I'm speculating, I shouldn't do that, is the officer, I think he said in the video that he thought the taser took effect when he moved towards her, and then she quickly jumped up. Usually what happens there is one of the prongs either misses or comes loose, or some people are just, their capacity it just doesn't have an effect on them.
Follow up. Okay. Want to come back around one more time? Matthew?
I just want to address the distinction between the crisis response team and the city's behavioral health diversion system. I know that those calls aren't necessarily implemented in dangerous calls such as these, but I'm assuming, and I don't know if any of those 20-plus calls prior were of this nature, and were any of those calls diverted through this system?
I don't have that information.
Yeah, so we're currently doing an audit on all those calls to see where they came into, what happened on those calls. That is not completed yet. But if calls come in and it is a crisis intervention situation, that can go to the city. It'll go to our CRT program. They'll review it, send it to the city, work collaboratively with the city on that. If it comes in as a crime of violence in progress, as this one was, that goes directly to patrol officers, respond immediately. If they then get there and it turns out not to be a crime of violence, but somebody needs assistance, obviously the social worker had been there previously in the day, so there were people already trying to work with her. But of course the officers on the scene know what they know at the time, and so we can't really get into their heads of what they do at the time until we interview them, but that's the situation we're in at this point.
And we don't know yet if that social worker was there because of a 911 call.
That is correct. We don't have official information yet as to why the social worker was there. If he was working with the family, just hadn't got there, that's all part of the investigation. And of course, these investigations are done by the Attorney General's office along with BPD. So there's a lot of coordination that goes into play to gather all the information, which will come together before the end of the investigation.
Excuse me. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think you guys named 3 officers in the beginning, but I counted 5 to 6 in the video. At what point was it decided that more officers were needed? Were they called, etc.? And then which officer had the crisis training?
Officer Horsey had the crisis training. And what happens is the officers came as backup because they didn't know what was going to be involved. They didn't know if we have to be in the front and the back, both. And then as you saw when we entered, the taser entered first, but your taser officer always has to have lethal coverage from a second officer.
Yeah. So what was like the point at which additional backup was like? How was that decided? Or
I don't think they called for anybody. I think just other officers showed up when they have calls like that. The officers back each other up and come to see if they can help and if we can.
And again, this one came in as a individual had attempted to stab someone.
Right.
So 3 officers arrived at the beginning. Other officers came because there was a potential stabbing.
okay.
Dariana?
So whose decision was it to breach the door?
So we don't have the answer to that question yet. That's part of the investigation. Again, we haven't been able to interview the officers yet, so what was in their mindset at the time, who made the final call, what decisions they based that on, all is what we'll get from them. We can only see what's in the video. Putting that all together, what they all knew and how they made the decision is part of the investigation.
Lawyer?
So we were talking about taser efficiency earlier as well. Do you have an idea of how often in cases when BPD is using these weapons that they do not work or they're ineffective?
I don't have those numbers. I know they're effective most of the time.
Follow-up to it? Give a follow-up.
Stephon?
Yes, when you think about just the optics of this, right, because I think this video will answer a lot of what you stated on that day about the patients, the efforts to coerce Miss Brooks to get out of her home. What do you make of what the community is going to view this as in light of what happened just a week prior and up to just a mile and a half away, and his family they hear a 7-year-old woman, a short knife, and officers with firepower. How do you rectify that to how the community perceives it despite the ongoing investigation?
I can't help the way the community perceives it, but I don't think we can compare these 2 incidents. You have, in the first case, you have an individual who shot an officer. In this case, you're having a lady who's clearly having a behavioral crisis that needed help, and we were trying to help her, and it ended up in an unfortunate, tragic incident. But our officers go out there every single day. We handle multiple calls for behavioral health every single day, and they handle them exceptionally. Unfortunately for this one, it didn't go quite as well as we wanted it to.
Gotcha. And just to follow up on that, when you mentioned that last statement you just said that, the work of your officers, I think we're all aware of that work. At what point does it become kind of a light bulb to just increase this training because of the amount of calls that went to this woman's home and that is happening across our city?
Well, just keep in mind that every officer gets some level of crisis intervention training in the academy. The additional training that we get, the best practices throughout the country, which we were following, was that it was a voluntary thing and not force everyone to it. We're going to try to move to that, but we run into the vendor capability of handling it 5 days a week in the academy. So it's really tough to try to, we're going to do everything we can to get every single person trained. But every officer that comes out, even 27 years ago, I got a brief bit of training, and our training now is much better than it's ever been. And we train our officers, and they go out every day trying to do the best for the community.
Tommy?
Is her name Karcha?
I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce. I know the family said they used to call her Tricia, I believe. We can give you the spelling for it if you'd like afterwards.
Any follow-up? Vincent?
Commissioner, just so I'm clear, this went out as an ag assault, correct, and not a mental health crisis? The initial call to the police.
Well, the first call came from the social worker for check the well-being.
Right.
Second call came as a lady armed with a knife, I believe.
All right, we're gonna, Maddie with the B's gonna ask the last question.
Yeah, BPD's policy for approaching a person in a mental health crisis is to de-escalate as much as possible. Is it considered de-escalating to go and kick in her front door like that?
Circumstances are different, and all that's under investigation. I think it was clear that Miss Brooks needed some assistance, and it's all under investigation as to why it was breached at that time. And once we talked